So why was Jay-Z not wanting to focus rap at one point in time?
You know, he was doing well, and you know, if you're doing well and you look at rappers and rappers aren't doing as well as you kind of look at them like this is corny.
Now, you actually introduced Dame Dash and Jay-Z?
Yes, I did.
Okay, now how did that come together?
Who you asking, boy? It's funny because this is like in the times when me and you first met. You realize that, right? Because you were DJing and you were making mixtapes, and that was around that time. Anyway, Dame had came to Atlantic with his cousin Darian Dash to have a meeting about his groups that he wanted to sign. One was the Future Sound and the other was Original Flavor. And the person he was coming to meet like had them sitting in the hallway all crazy. So I went out into the hallway and I saw them and I was like, "Who you waiting for?" And they told me, and I was like, "How long you been waiting?" They were like it's already been 45 minutes. And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "You know what? Come on, let's just go." And I brought them in the back. And the thing was, they were young and they were black, and I didn't think that they should have been sitting in there waiting to be seen like that because I was young and I was black too. And I just wanted everything to feel fair wherever I was at. So I brought them in, I'm listening to the music, and I realized one of the artists was an artist that I already liked, and it was Ski from Original Flavor. And Ski used to be in a group called the Busy Boys, and he had a record called Dropping It. And when I was on the radio, I was already playing the record, but I had met Ski on the road with Dana Dane. So that's how long me and Ski go back. He was in the Busy Boys then. And I was playing his record on the radio, and then he's here with Dame Dash. I mean, he's in a group with that Dame Dash has. So I'm just like, well, I want to sign him. And I liked the Future Sound. I thought they were different, and I wanted to sign them too. So I gave him a deal for his two artists. And then watching him with his artists made me tell him, "You need to hear my boy." And he was like, "Well, he's from Brooklyn and I don't want to go to Brooklyn." And I was like, "No, come with me. We're going to go to Brooklyn." And he thought he was going to get robbed, and he didn't think anything good about Brooklyn. So as much as I was with Damon, I would hang out on 141st Street with him, go to 1199 with him. We'd hang out and I'd play parties for his crew, and we were all friends. He didn't want to come to Brooklyn. So when I finally convinced him to come to Brooklyn and he meets Jay, he's like, "Wait a minute, he's just like me." And he's wearing Nike Airs. So as soon as he saw the Nike Airs, he felt comfortable. And then the magic happened.
Okay, now how did they end up forming Roc-A-Fella together?
When you're out there trying to get signed, you have to be moving as a unit. So once you realize we're having too much issues getting signed, they just came together and decided to do it on your own. Once you come together to do it on your own, you have to do business. Once you're doing business, you need a name. And Ski had the company called Roc-A-Block, and Tone Hooker came up with that name, and then he came up with Roc-A-Fella for the record label and just took it and ran with it.
Okay, now how did Biggs get involved in all that?
Biggs was little brother of Baba Lob. He was one of the best out Dame, the crew that Dame was in, and of course Biggs was a best out member too. And he just came in as another partner. You know, he had the funds.
Now, you already knew Biggie by this point?
Yeah.
Okay, because you kind of discovered Biggie, or no?
No, I wouldn't say I discovered Biggie. I was just cool with him. I was cool with Un. Like me and Un, we knew each other from before Biggie was rapping. We from the streets. I knew Daddy-O from the streets. I knew Justice from the streets, and that was his peoples. You know what I'm saying? And you knew about Big because he was rhyming in the street. And we all knew about him. And when he got with Puff, and when C brought him to Puff, we was all like, yes, of course he's supposed to get a deal. It makes sense. He's dope. So when it was time to go on the road, he was managed by someone that I taught the music business to. So he was just like, yo, if you're going on the road, we got to go on the road with a professional. And then we're going to go on the road with Clark. And it was all love because, you know, we already was fam. We was already cool.
Okay, now you're cool with Jay and Biggs and the whole crew, and they start putting together Reasonable Doubt. How involved were you in the overall process of all that?
I'm involved in the whole process because the record started in my house.
Really?
Yeah, I built a studio in my house because I wanted Jay to rap. I know I might sound a little crazy, but I was tired of bringing them to studios and abusing somebody else's budget. So I would remix a record, take a 24-hour block, remix the record in 12 hours, and then the rest of the 12 hours I was making records on Jay. And then one day I was just like, I'm gonna just take this money and put a studio in my crib. And it became the hub for where Ski was making records, and he made a couple of Camp Low songs in my house. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was where you came to work as we were a crew.
Now, as you were working on Reasonable Doubt, did you have any idea how big it was going to end up being?
I knew since I met him that if he makes an album, it was going to be trouble for everybody. I'm dead serious. I don't know if I was on some Confucius shit telling us the future, but when I met him, I knew he was the one. And it's funny because he's with Jazz, who I was already like, Jazz is the best. And then I meet him and I'm like, wait a minute. He might be the best, but this guy has that other thing. And his attitude and it was a lot to him. You know what I'm saying? He was something else. Beyond the fact that his rhymes were like amazing. Like anytime somebody rhymed next to him or on the same song with him, they always seemed very pale in comparison. And this was happening a lot. Like, he was rhyming around people a lot. And as soon as he opened his mouth, he just was like, oh, goddamn, this is some other shit. It just was like some other shit. So even if in the times when he was rhyming fast, and it's like if he was around you and you was rhyming, when he rhymed fast, it just hurt more. Because he rhymed fast, it was super clear, and the rhymes were like stunning. So it was something else when you heard him. So when the record did what it does, and the fact that he is what he is now, this is no surprise to me. That's why I was clear on him. I was like, no, he's it.
Yeah, that's what's up. So when you talk about people rapping with Jay, let's talk about Brooklyn's finest. I heard that Biggie was originally supposed to get the beat.
The beat 100% was for Jay. It's just that Biggie heard it by accident and wanted it immediately. And I just couldn't give it to him. And his answer was, you keep giving this motherfucker everything. Yo, stop. Yo, let me get that. You give him everything. And I'm like, well, he's my artist. I'm your DJ. So who gets what first? But the thing at that point, though, it was, if he doesn't want it, you can have it. But it was for him. You know what I'm saying? It was made to give him to do the song. It just wasn't Brooklyn's finest at that point.
Okay, so describe that first meeting with Biggie and Jay-Z. Did they know each other before that song?
No, they knew of each other, but I'm on the road with Big explaining to him how good he is. And he's like, yeah, he's cool. He's good. Yeah, he can rap. But I'm like, no, like, he's it. And he's like, yeah, all right, whatever. You know, yeah, he's nice. But then, you know, when he heard the record, then it was, I gotta be on the record. You know what I'm saying? So he wasn't gonna let it go. He wasn't comfortable with me going and doing this record with him after he heard the beat. He was like, I need to be on the song. So when I introduced them, it was at the studio when Jay was making the record, which was an hour after Big heard the beat by accident. So I'm just like, you gotta wait. Just wait downstairs in the car, and I'm gonna tell him. So I go upstairs, record the song. The song comes out, it's 3 verses, it's full, and then I say what I probably should have said at the beginning of the session. Why don't you let me get Big on the song? And everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy, and they're acting like, yeah, no, because we don't want to pay Puff. Like, Dame was like, fuck that, we ain't paying Puff no money, plus we don't know him. And I was like, well, you know I know him. So Jay was like, if you can make it happen, it's all good. And in the background, Dame goes, yeah, but we ain't paying Puff no money. So my thing was, let's try to see if we can make it happen. And if it gets to the point where anything like that goes down and we don't want to pay Puff, then it would have to be Big saying this record has to happen. So I went downstairs, 'cause I acted like I had to go to the bathroom. I went downstairs, I brought him back up. I got called funny. They were like, yo, you a funny nigga for the whole session. They met each other. It wasn't even like they had a conversation. They just like started to laugh, clapped hands, because there was an insane amount of respect for each other's craft. Like, you don't really have to talk in those moments. But played the song, Jay says play the beat, let the beat play for like 20 minutes. Jay goes in the booth and changes everything and goes, you ready? And Big's like mystified. And I was like, I told you he don't write no rhymes. And from that point, Big stopped writing rhymes. He was like, I'm not gonna be the guy that's gonna be out here writing when this guy could do that.
Okay, so there is a version of Brooklyn's Finest that's completely different, just with Jay-Z.
Yeah. But it wasn't called Brooklyn's Finest. It was called, it's funny because at that point it had two different titles. The title would have probably ended up being No More Mr. Nice Guy. One of the titles was Once We Get Started. That was in beginning, that's what the title was gonna be. But then after he did the verses, it was No More Mr. Nice Guy. And then he switched everything around. That's why at the beginning of one of the verses, it gets No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Okay, so do you still have a version of Jay-Z's original?
That's a good question, huh? We'll leave that right there.
Up until that time, Biggie was writing his rhymes.
Yeah.
And he saw Jay do what he did, and he started to...
Even though I told him a bunch of times he don't write his rhymes down, he thought it was like impossible that he could say rhymes that good without writing them down. And the thing is, like, while I'm telling him that, I'm telling him how it gets done, so he's like, no way.
Okay, so they recorded it. Once that session was over, you were like, yo, this is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to understand, like, I thought they were the two best around and they should rhyme together. And the friendship that they had as soon as they met each other was the proof that they should have been working together. Like, it took Big like 2 months to put the verses on it, but in those 2 months before he did it, they were inseparable. Like, the next day they shot a video together. Like, they saw each other, they met each other, it was instant love. Next day they in a video shot.
This was the Dead President's video?
Yeah. Like, people were like, how did this happen? And I was like, well, he met him yesterday. Like, really? You met him yesterday? You doing a video with him the next day? It's crazy. That's how much respect there was on site.